photo app or a photo op of this. Yes. अच्छा मेरा फोन थोड़ा देना Please note that we are all in purple, including my phone. So, as is this wonderful, beautiful cover of Absolute Jafar, are some phones of some parliamentarians in this audience. So it's all very color coordinated and wonderful. Thank you, Sarnath, for allowing us to launch the career of Jafar in this festival. I simply loved the book. It's beautiful. And Daisy Rockwell has written, it's something she'll return to again and again. I'm not so sure that I'll return to it again and again, but I'll return to some cells of the graphic novels again, of the graphic novel again and again, because it's beautifully illustrated. So let me start with what I told you outside, that this book is unique in that the visuals are funny, eccentric, quirky, and yet the story is somewhat sad and nostalgic and makes one reflect about where we started off with the turn of the century and perhaps a little earlier, and where we are now. So this wonderful, it works beautifully, the disconnect, but this wonderful disconnect that really informs this book, how did it come to be?
The expectation of a graphic novel to be, I mean, there's no expectation of a graphic novel to be cheerful or especially TED Talky, inspiring, or none of that. But if you go through the book, and somewhere in the book it also talks about, it is basically tightly written nothings. The two basic principles are basically tightly written nothing, which is the film that we talked
Tightly
about.
Told Nothing.
Tightly Told Nothing, which is the film, which the book talks about, this film, which you're going to talk about, I'm sure. Arvind Desai ka Ajib Dastan, where nothing literally happens. The man he's a South Bombay man. He gets into Premier Padmini. He moves around the city. Nothing, I mean, almost in pursuit of pointlessness. And his life is almost as pointless as his death, which is like, well, he's pointlessly cleaning his father's gun and gets accidentally shot. You don't even notice his death. It's nothing, no big deal. Nothing really actually happened. And the rest of the book is about like badly remembered things that Ruplina and Rahul were talking about, which is basically some of the things that are fondly remembered but badly recollected. Sort of, the things that happen outside a photograph. Because the photograph somehow, you can't remember. I'm kind of interested in things that actually happen outside a photograph. The photograph would not have a family photograph in front of Niagara Falls would not have the dynamics that actually happen. And neither would it have the sort of, the strange dynamic. There might be a sleazy uncle in the middle of all that conversation. There might be somebody who's like smiling, is perhaps not. I think I should keep it very short, I guess. So the book is written, it's a very sort of personal journey of like, of this sort of in search of this pointlessness. And it was written in very gloomy world of Berlin, which was at that time was like a soft Moscow. And the novel kind of travels through these landscape like Karachi, Delhi, of a period, of a particular time in the 90s and things like that. And there's a lot to celebrate, but it's a tonal universe. It's a way in which I have like sort of put together a world which is a kind of how we felt at that time. And we remember, like, all our lives were like built around this one mealie that would be shown on Friday, and like we were like losers, were like waiting for like that Diwar is going to be shown on like Wednesday. The whole world, like all of India, whether you're like growing up in Breach Candy or whether you're growing up in like Calcutta or wherever, it's all like linked to that. So I guess it has a melancholic tonality in it. But sad, I don't especially, I mean, it might have come across as sad, but it does actually have a late Ito period, like floating generation, that anything good might not exist for too long.
Yes, you mentioned that Delhi in the 90s and early 2000s was like the late Edo period where people with very unique persuasions like what was how do you,
Etymology or
Entomology.
Bhutto, yeah, anyone could do anything you wanted to do. I was telling somewhere, I probably repeating myself, maybe I've told this to you only, that I was once walking down after a party. I got off of the metro at Nehru Place and I was walking towards my flat in CR Park. And there's one of these tandoori places which sort of sells tandoori largely. And there was a drunken guy who for the longest time we walked together for a bit, wordlessly. A bit like the raccoon and Brigu in the beginning, the imperial raccoon in Tokyo. And we were walking together for a while and there's this, at the tandoori shop, the guy stops and he says that, "Bhaiya, यहाँ पे मछली का पाया मिलता है?" And it felt like Delhi was like that. It was a place where even machli ka paya was possible. If you asked politely, anything could happen, and that was that machli ka paya. So there was a great celebration of that particular period.
So we are roughly the same age, and we are a generation that waited for that one Saturday feature film, that one Chitrahar, and there was a lot of waiting, and if only we could have more films through the week, if only we could have a channel where there were songs all day. And now here we are looking in a very long, wistful way at that time when, so how do you speak about, in your novel, you keep thinking of a time where things were wonderful, but when you really go back, as you said, there's a disconnect between recollection and what was actually remembering.
Badly remembered things.
Yes, this badly remembered, there are two aspects. First, speak about remembering badly. Does good literature come out of remembering badly?
Yeah, memory itself is a faulty device. It is not really. It is definitely memory edits and it puts together like, this is a time when even Kapil Dev had to wait for a phone call. He would say, "मैं आज नहीं आ सकता हूँ कि MTNL is going to call me and I might get a telephone connection and stuff like that." This is a world which knew how to wait. And now that we've neoliberalized or whatever, made slowness and mindfulness, all this sort of, you pay to kind of get slow, you pay to get a dumb phone, or pay to slow down. This was a very slow universe. The topidity of that universe was bizarre, and that time it seemed horrible. That it always felt like Delhi always felt like the party is elsewhere. At least us, because Delhi was a two-tier city. It was like downstairs, upstairs city, bit like that British television series, Downton Abbey. So there were the Soods and the Malhotras and the Dalhotras and the Balhotras, and they all married each other. They laughed at each other's jokes. They kind of got each other, sort of a thing. And then there were like the rest of them, migrants who like had in the West Delhi University colleges. For us, like New Year was like the television Doordarshan program of New Year that with who's that Javed Jafri doing breakdance. That sort of stuff. I mean, if people say that this is nostalgia, what is nostalgia about? Like, driving around all of Narendra Chanchal, as you said. What was it? Yeah.
Hi, hello, chhodiye, Jai Mata Di boliye.
Yeah, amazing. This is this electro jagran, which can make like the hormones like run wild. The basic, the erotics of like, that world, and where you kind of drove around Delhi with a crate of beer that you picked up from Suraj Kund, which is just outside Delhi, waiting for a place where there's any light, and the only place that has any light is outside AIMS, emergency center, emergency hospital. So Delhi slept and went to bed. It was like Congo after like, at Kinshasa at like after 9 o'clock. I mean, one can't really be nostalgic. Meanwhile, the Soods and the, Mathur's, Saxena, not the Saxena, the business community, but yeah, like the Oberois and the that lot. They were having parties, but you met them at college and you met them at film festivals and all that. But there was definitely divide. You even dated some of them for anthropological reasons. They dating us for anthropological reasons. And so, it was, how can anybody be nostalgic about a world like that? But it is not nostalgia. It's a visual history. It is almost like history of how we felt, history of emotion, to sound a little bit galpola. And that's what the visual world of comics, as in text and image, can put together without actually using too many words or too many stuff.
So you spoke about how what happens outside a photograph or a selfie is what interests you. So do your illustrations also try to just inhabit spaces which are rarely seen typically in what we take as photographs to collect memories over the years?
Mala, while writing this book for the last, 4 or 5 years, while putting my child to bed in the morning and waking up those sort of small hours when the sky, like it's night and it's snowing outside, and like buttoning up and reluctantly pulling out a child from the last vestiges of dreams, or my father, I remember in Calcutta, used to play Ali Akbar Khan or something like, I played Lucky Ali. And how to take him out and walk to the station to take a metro, and he would ask, it's in the book, he would ask questions that, Baba, Mama said that you've stolen all my ideas and I want a salary. So I said, how much do you want? He says, well, 25. I said, no, 60. I said, 60 is too high. He says, 50. I said, no, 50 is too high. Then it's okay, 30 cents and no less. That child is now 5'11". So what I'm trying to say is that he's 13 and he's like, he's a Karachi boy in Neukölln, which is the biggest Palestinian area in Berlin. And he's growing up there like Altaf Hussain, like as I was telling you, he's a bit like Salim Langre pe. Salim Langre ko gussa kyun aata hai. If you combine these two films together, he's a bit like that. He's like a ticket black marketeer in like Neukölln, moving around entire Berlin. So while writing, to answer your question now, while writing the book, you're reliving those worlds of, where you had to bend backward to make Germans understand what you're trying to tell them, and what all you got was a Haile Selassie look. Do you know the Haile Selassie look? It's 2 inches above your eyes. So if you got an enthusiastic intern who comes and like says that I have this great idea, you don't discourage them, just give them the Haile Selassie look. Mid-sentence, the person will lose interest. So Germans, then I realized that I'm getting the Haile Selassie look every time I tell the German that nobody in India wakes up feeling post-colonial or anything complicated which is beyond the, the script of the European ideas. So going through that life, because life, as I think Ruplina or Rahul, somebody was saying that 10 years is long and 10 years is short. And this is exactly, and while you're writing that book, you're reclaiming that world. It is just at a slow, it's like being in a bathtub, a warm bathtub which you don't want to come out of. Bit like that.
So you use the word reclaiming. So do you think this is something we need to hold on to, these memories of a time when India is changing, and it will, of course, as Rahul said, and Ruplina said, 10 years can be both long and short, and time will change. So what made you really want to reclaim that space? Is it the time? There are spaces as well as time. So there's the Delhi of the 90s and the 2000s, and there is your own personal journey. So, they both kind of coalesce into this space in the book which is nostalgic, and that's why I used the word sad when I first met you, because you think all of this is gone, it's grown, it's evolved, but it's still something which was very innocent and pure back then. So is this the quest to kind of keep that in a book called Absolute Jafar?
First of all, every time you want to say the word sad, use a Japanese word called mono no aware. Sounds much nicer.
It sounds like a Bengali who's got a Parsi father.
It sounds like a Bengali serial, certainly. It also actually is like a Bengali serial. Mono ne aware is like present is anyway going to, we are constantly going to bleed the present. We are constantly hemorrhaging the present, and we are constantly making past. So this very moment, like 10 minutes later or like half an hour later, people are going to go back. And this beautiful, as a sinister place, but with sort of this beauty, imbued with this beauty. And the atmosphere, the tone, and the people they have met, and the fashion, etc. So we are constantly bleeding the present to the past. So Monone Aware is a fantastic way to kind of explain that world. Regarding to the honest, I'm suddenly very animated. I was just sitting there quietly. I think it's the tea that Momo got me. The Monone, the fact that you asked me why am I writing it, the honest answer to you is that for myself. Comics does not make me a fortune anymore, and as if it did before. It does not have the same cultural cachet as it did because of all the other medium. We all wanted a comic book shelf. There was a time when every comic book writer in India wanted a comic book shelf. Now we have it, but it's filled with manga. So indigenous comics of what the kind of comics we wrote is not written anymore. So there was a short time when all of us comic book writers wanted to write this whole visual culture that we were living, and we wanted to make it mainstream. Like write a book on Narendra Chanchal. Any Narendra would do, or whatever. And then we were cured by two of our mutual friends, Chetan Bhagat and Amish. They told us that, boss, if you're going in that route of becoming a mainstream person, you have to write a certain kind of book. And Chetan told me, "Tere bas mein nahi hai, to forget about it." So it is basically fundamentally you're doing still things for yourself, and that gives you a lot of. You've seen my fabulous mental health, and that is how, because of writing comics. This fantastically healthy person that is sitting in front of me is because I do comics. I wake up in the morning, I draw like an adult 53-year-old man should. Not talk about sip.
Okay, so the other thing that is very, very, it's an underlying theme through at least the first half of the book is the bureaucraties and the red tapeism, and how much you've delighted with creating characters like Affidavit Tyagi and the Noori system. Just can you explain the character here, like Sarnath, was married to a Pakistani, and just explain what Noori is, other than that Yash Chopra produced Poonam Dhillon starrer.
Yeah, it is.
Farooq Sheikh.
Yeah, I think the Ministry of Home Affairs got inspired by that film. The ending of Noori is tragic, and I think that was what Noori actually meant. By Indo-Pak, it's a no objection or return to India. That's called Noori, and you had to go through like several legal sub clauses to kind of enter that world of Noori. Luckily, we had a guy called Affidavit Tyagi, Achal. What was the name? Achal Tyagi or something like that. But he was in Tisazari. He was known as Affidavit Tyagi. He could just do an affidavit in seconds. He could change like names and rectify colonial mistakes just by doing affidavits. So I spent a large part of my ex-wife and I spent large part of our youth in the corridors of.
So there wasn't a real affidavit. Yeah.
No, that's fictitious. I sometimes say the truth, sometimes say the lie. Don't try to.
You remember which is which?
It's not like palak paneer where you can take the paneer out. It is more like keema and trying to tomato out of the keema. It's not. It doesn't work like that. So basically, what happened? We spent our youth in the Home Affairs Ministry, where all the regular problem, like domestic problems that people have, never happened because we were fighting a larger force, and that is where the first time I saw Freud's principle of the uncanny come to fruition, where he said that living things might not be as living as they look, and dead things might not be as dead as they seem. So the water cooler was not as dead because it kind of sputtered and muttered and all that. The benches kind of wrapped you around, and the Angstella, the workers, the bureaucrats, the clerks and all that, they were so still that some point of time you had to realize that, am I seeing nature mort? Because this kind of level of stillness you will not find anywhere else, So, and then we picked up hobbies, crochet, I read a little bit of cricket. I mean, that time I did not know Rahul, who realized that the name, as you do, the name of the book is called Absolute Jafar, which is Absolute Jafar. And yeah, so it also taught us humility, mindfulness. All this happened at Ministry of Home Affairs. We really understood the nature of power. And it's spiritual and it's good for you. People need to be repressed. Otherwise, if you don't repress them, they go to Berlin and they separate. Because the fight that was, taken care of by the Home Ministry came home in Europe, because in Europe is a land of couples and, coupleocracy, as we call it. So this learning experience that I have had in the Indian bureaucracy is fantastic. I would suggest everybody do that. However, I would recommend people not to have cross-border relationship, because it is like an autoimmune disease.
Yes, you say that in the book as well.
Even after marriage is over, the child is there, and you have to constantly. The child is called Jafar Bechara because Mir Jafar is known as as our Bengal synonymous for whatever he is. And once a friend tells the protagonist that your child is, no matter what happens, he'll be playing cricket somewhere in India or in Pakistan, and no matter where he fields, misfields, bowls, gets bowled out, whatever happens, somebody's going to shout out and say Gaddar. And that's what kind of, it's the third principle which connects this very fat, unnecessarily big book.
No, it's a beautiful book, and it is not very fat. The illustrations are truly, truly exceptional and detailed and very, very meticulously done, and yet not precious or trying too hard. So now to Absolute Jafar. Tell us, this title of course appeals to the cricket fan in me, but how did you decide on Absolute Jafar as the title of this book?
So no one knows the Absolute Jafar part of it, like the trickiness of where the ball is. I mean, nobody knows that it's an Africa. It's a cricketing term. And the central character, of course, is this character who is very comfortable in the streets of Karachi, where he's a Shia who's a minority, Mohajir from a UP background, walks around the streets and the gullies and the liaris and all whatever marsias. Which when I was writing, obviously it was not in, and they haven't understood Liari at all. Liari is this bustling megapolis like Bronx, much bigger than Bronx, where many types of communities, from Baloch to the Makranis, which is the African community. There are football teams, there are Gadagari races. There is a place called Kharadar, which has got the most fantastic julus, almost as, well, I don't want to compare, the Muharram juluses that go through, where you see very specific bits of Lucknow passing by. Mike? Yeah. So you have all these beauteous world of Liari. You see those rough men with coal eyes, and walking through the southern area of Karachi, which is where bags, Parsi bags, and synagogues, old synagogues, and you enter this sort of Empress market, and with this beautiful Pathan men, with kajal and shawls, even unpacking while, they look very elegant. And although they have voices like Usha Mangeshkar. So at any day, a Bengali man can beat them just when it comes to voice. So they all have that sort of slight. So the point that I was trying to say is that a child who is quite happy to be in that world of and behaving like a Karachi kid, like a little Altaf Hussain, who also in Calcutta, in North Calcutta, he walks around Nimtalaghat Street as if his grandfather owned a homeopathy shop there. And also wears a kefaya to school in college, in school in Berlin. And when I tell him that, you are somebody will do will he beat you up? He says, no, I'm from Karachi. They can't beat me up. So I have to tell him that, no, you're a Bengali man who has to write editorials against violence, not beat people up. So these kind of, this Absolute Jafar is this character who is, his name is based on this principle of the Gaddari, sort of a thing. And tricky, constantly. You never know where the ball is going to turn. And of course, Mir Jafar, because my son's name is Mir. And not many people know this. But so this combination, I couldn't come up with a better name than that.
Okay. But the other aspect of this book is the three, or at least the two cities it moves between. There is Delhi, which you said is like the late Edo period, and then there's Berlin. So you beautifully delineated the cold yet beautiful and efficient world that is Berlin. So how much of an anti-muse almost was Berlin in this book?
Anti-muse?
Because Delhi seems to be the place where your heart is.
Yeah, I mean, when I first went to Berlin, I mean, for like months and months, I used to look at the Delhi weather report. Very randomly. Berlin is a very uncanny city. It has the same kind of uncanniness that that Karachi, Delhi also has, I suppose, because a large part of my book is about jinns and architecture, and there's a little, we'll come to that in a bit, but Berlin for us was a hard city to get in, because a lot of it is about particularities. Living in contemporary Europe, or any Europe, being a foreigner is conceived very differently in Europe than in us. Like we've always been written by foreigners, like Yuan Sang or Fahen or whoever. They always wrote about us, and we've kind of somewhat also understood ourselves through foreigners as well. Foreigners come from all kinds of, including the Asiatic society people. But in Germany, foreigner means like three Nigerians enter into this one dorf in like Germany, and it changes the demographics, sort of a thing. There's a huge fear and this thing. So, and what happens is that there's this huge pressure to integrate, which means that you have to like sort of, if you give that particularized, very specific modernity, this Mila-Jula modernity that we've grown up with, if you try to explain it to them, the same thing that nobody wakes up feeling post-colonial in Delhi, you get the Haile Selassie look. So then after a while you learn the things. Somebody asks you that, you speak good English. I said, yeah. Is that because you spent time in England? I said, not much, but yeah. And you speak Indian at home? I said, yeah, mostly Indian at home, but occasionally English also outside for official. You start, after a while, you stop explaining, and you save the torture to even the person who is kind of momentarily curious about your identity. So there's a lot of walking on eggshell, bending backward, trying to explain your context to sort of an average German person. And then October 7 happened, and everything went, a lot of people felt very disappointed in that situation. But so mostly it is clash of modernities. Like, your modernities of Dalhousie Institute and, institutions in Calcutta where you've like done whatever stuff like that is something of great, it's almost unbelievable for an average European mind that this can come out of this particular world. Either you're highly privileged or stuff like that. So if you notice that the books and the films, largely which become very successful in Europe, have a checklist attached to it. Yeah, you need to kind of, position yourself as a decolonial, post-colonial kind of a nation. So, and the migrants play that game. We all play this game of, like I was telling yesterday in a gathering that, the decolonial matar paneer made with free tomatoes, or post-colonial dal. And even desis, like brown people, play that game as well. So, I forgot the question.
Berlin as an anti-muse, like a counterpoint to Delhi.
So these were all hard things to kind of, these were hard things to kind of, become. But at the same time, I also did not want to become this hyper-masculine person who is an expert of his field in like a diver in a small pond, which often what might happen if you kind of keep on continuing living in Delhi and you're not feeling vulnerable, you've never been asked where your context is from, because you expect to be understood all the time, incessantly, which happened for a particular generation of men that.
So now I'm going to cut you there because I have to ask two quick questions and then
okay.
Go. Sorry to cut
So you become vulnerable.
You become vulnerable. Okay. So there are two. The book starts with the Kuno Park and ends with that. Why? Can you explain the cheetahs?
Oh, you want to get me into trouble. But a satisfied look also. Yeah, cheetah, migrant, displaced cheetah. Like, I mean, yeah. I mean, the book begins. I'll just describe what she's talking about, which is basically the book starts off with cheetahs being transferred from Namibia to Madhya Pradesh in. Oh God. And it's called The Last Migrant. And photographs are taken, and it also ends. It's not ends with the cheetah. The character is basically sitting by the spray and looking up, and across him there's a cheetah, and he looks up, and the cheetah looks at him. I don't think there's anything much to say apart from the last migrant and the cheetah, and everybody can make the maths themselves. Comics is a collaboration between the reader and the writer. Without the reader, we are nothing, because the whole idea, comics is a medium of absences.
Okay, so the answer is slightly absent there. So the last question, before I just quickly throw it out to the audience for a few from them. How did the family react to this book?
Well, the ex-family permission had to be taken, because ex-family, as in I'm using the word family as Indians use, we use family, she had to agree. There's not much, because the earlier speakers had female protagonists, and I'm a fail in that matter. When it comes to every time I try to kind of have a female protagonist or write or female character, I've always fell flat on my face. So what you have is a lot of this character, the female character, in location reactions, but she doesn't speak much. She doesn't say. So Karan Mahajan told me that your character, Saskia also said, but how come your character doesn't speak at all? I said, I don't know how characters think. So I'll just create the mahal and you make your own words. So first was to take permission. Child, of course, is delighted, but maybe later on at therapy is going to say, my father is completely he's a complete AH, and he's taken all my stories and didn't even give me money for all that. So, but currently he's very happy that I actually have stolen a lot of ideas from him. He just sits there and he, the delight of having a 13-year-old boy. You have 2 boys, so you know, or girl also. Do have that sort of, this is a new generation boys who are quite, I don't know, quite kind of exciting. I was terribly disappointed when Frau Goldsberg told us that we are having a boy. But then over the years, they've become softer, and they're kind of quite instinctive and talk about just about anything. So I freely steal his ideas. He knows that. But so agreement from the boy, from the mother, my parents, so everything was, it worked out. But good that you asked that question. Ethical question. One should ask that question. Yeah.
So any ethical questions from the audience? I can see your hand there. Can you get a mic across? You walked towards her, and then what happened? Yes.
Thank you. Sarnath, you pointed out something which I thought was very profound, where you said that it is important that for men, especially Indian men, in Delhi perhaps, and perhaps for a few other cities as well, where you need to understand vulnerability. And having to go to Europe and explain the context of who you are, because you've never ever in your life had to explain it. It's just taken for granted. Now, you left as, you weren't really one of those men, but yet you moved to Germany and you clearly got that understanding and felt vulnerable and ended up writing this book. Now, probably most people aren't going to do that. How important do you think is for a person, especially Indian men, who don't have the privilege of moving abroad and who are continuing to live here, what other options are there where we can make them understand this vulnerability so that they can better contextualize out of safe zones? You get my question?
Yeah.
Thanks. Because yours led to a book. There are probably a lot of men sitting out there which lead to nothing, but how do we help them get along? Because we are women having to live with men who have never felt vulnerable in their lives. So we need to be with men who feel vulnerable. So how do we help Indian men get there?
I mean, if they become vulnerable and make it all about themselves, that's also a problem. Because then you also have these hypersensitive men, the sensitivity is largely around themselves, which is a lot of new age men I see. And there was an older lot of people, like a lot of people miss that older lot, like slightly patriarchal, but somehow, could change bulbs and all that. But now they don't know how to change bulbs, but kind of this emo talk they can do, which is also very dangerous. So one has to choose this battle very carefully. And yeah, going abroad it's like cooking. All Indian men or a lot of Indians learn how to cook. They have to learn how to cook when they go abroad, and all of us. I mean, I learned cook from all failed relationships. There was always at the end of a relationship, I would say there's at least a recipe. So. Raising a child has always been raising a child has been fantastic because I largely raised a child, but now he's become like I said, a black marketeer moving around. Berlin, he calls up and says, Baba, I'm coming. That's it. And I'm like really happy. Baba he's coming, and but whether men can do this sort of vulnerability, I guess it's a unfolding story. Because
Work in progress.
Yeah, because there are a lot of support system problems that men have. For example, a lot of men, when they get together, they exchange information. Like, political or financial or investment or stuff like that. But luckily or the writers and all, we are gossipy. We're like, we're gossipy, and we like talk about relationships, and we kind of, have fun and live in a world of imagination. I do this project called Critical Imagination Deficit, which is when people have a lack of imagination. And I think, I guess talking is one way, and there are men, for example, who only meet women from Tinder and dating websites through their, that's the only women they meet is through Hinge or Bumble and things like that. There's no other relationship they have with any other woman. There's also like German men as well. I'm not slacking only Indian men. But anyway.
I think we have time for 2 short questions and short answers. There is a hand up right here in front. Short question, please.
Sarnath, you didn't plant me to ask this question. But film, book, comic book, reader can imagine, the director controls the pace at which the mahal or the frame moves fast. In comic book, the detailing of the frame to hold the attention of the reader, how important is that, and how does it differ from the other two?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's a good question. Do you want to take the other 2-3 questions, and then I can pace myself very quickly and answer? Because I like the questions more than the answers, yeah?
Yeah. So I had another question is what is your writing and artistic process while making this book?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let's take a few questions, then I can answer that. Yeah, okay. Comics create psychological state like a theater writer or a kabuki theater it's compositional. You write and you draw and your best writing, smart writing, and you still recreate crap comics. But good comics script could be baba or whatever. So so it's completely a compositional world where you're trying to create a psychological state through text and image, where the text and image don't have their individual personalities anymore. They together become something like sodium chloride. No sodium, no chloride in salt. So similarly, it creates something completely transformative sort of a thing. How do I achieve that? Music, yoga, good food, mindful living, kindness, raising a child. The list will continue. You just have to stop me. Yeah, thank you.
I knew you'd run out. So thank you, Sarnath. That was wonderful. I'd strongly recommend that you pick up Absolute Jafar. It's a fabulous read. It's beautifully illustrated, and it's everything that the current blockbuster isn't, which is a beautiful look across the border from that side to this and from this side to that. So thank you, Sarnath. Keep the pictures coming, keep the stories
And
coming.
thank you for not only wearing the sari, also getting your husband and perhaps all the family members to wear the purple. Thank you very much.
Thank